Welcome to my channel. So today we'll be covering the commas that are very prevalent on the ACT English test. And we'll just walk through the rules and the concepts of the comma. So the first rule of the comma is to separate items in a series. So a series is simply just a list inside of a sentence in this case. So here's our list right here. Right, 4 bananas, 3 oranges, and 3 apples. And our items are the things inside of the list. So our bananas, right, our oranges, and our apples. And then our commas separate these items in the in the series. And that's like it's the point of its first rule. So over here we have another series, 3 apples, 4 oranges, and 5 bananas. And then we have our commas that separate each unit, and each unit is right, the 3 apples, the 4 oranges, and the 5 bananas. Perfect. The next rule is when a conjunction is used to connect two independent clauses or sentences, use a comma before the conjunction. So a sentence or a clause is merely an idea, right? They can be complete or incomplete ideas. And in this case, when two sentences or clauses are independent, that means the idea is a complete idea, which it's its own statement that you're making. So here we have a sentence: I went swimming in the pool, comma, and the water was very cold. So we have two separate ideas here. We have I went swimming in the pool, and then we have the water was very cold. They're connected, they're related, but they're very different ideas. They're their own ideas. And just to highlight the parts of the sentence, well, we have the conjunction used right here. The and is our conjunction to connect two sentences or clauses. Then we have our kind of first here, I'll use a different color for that. We'll use purple. Our two ideas right here. And then we have our comma, just kind of right there, sitting right there, connecting this idea, this whole idea, with this idea. And that's the point of the comma, really. That's the second rule that applies to the comma. Same thing here. I go on jogs in the morning. That's its own idea, right? I go on jogs in the morning is its own sort of statement. And then I go for a run in the evening. It's also its own statement, right? These are two separate statements. We have our conjunction, which is and. We have our conjunction and is sitting right there. And then we have our comma, which separates both. So I go on jogs in the morning, comma, and I go for a run in the evening. Now, moving on. Now we have our third rule. Use a comma to distinguish any introductory phrases or words in a sentence. So when you want to establish a setting for a sentence, you usually have a sort of introductory word, like finally, firstly, after a long day. All these words kind of they set a setting for your sentence so that it gives context to the reader. When I write finally, comma, I went to bed, what I'm trying to say here is that after a long time, after a long period, after a long night, whenever, I went to bed. It's like a relief statement. And to separate our introductory phrase from our actual statement, we use a comma, which is essential for the English language. And you'll see this on the ACT as well. So we have our two statements, right? Our introductory phrase, our actual statement, and then we have our comma right here. So yeah. Now, it also applies to initially. So finally is just an example. Initially could also be used here. Initially, I do not believe this to be true. So initially, it kind of signals that at the beginning, first, how it used to be. So it sets that setting for the sentence, and then it kind of gives a statement. It gives a statement. All right, perfect. For number 4, before quotation marks, use a comma to signify dialogue. So the quotation marks have some purpose. We're not talking about that right now, but the quotation marks have a couple uses, and one of those is dialogue. It can also be used to highlight a poem, like to show that this is a poem. And the way to signify dialogue is by using a comma. So here we'd say, Mary said, I had a little lamb, right? So we have our quotation marks right here, just sitting right there. And this is our dialogue. I had a little lamb. We use our comma, which is just sitting right here, to show that Mary said, comma, I had a little lamb. So this signifies that this is dialogue said by Mary. Now, same thing here. We have our comma, which kind of sits between our John said and our I like apples, which is our 2 quotation marks. Now, yeah, that's basic idea of the 4th rule. The 5th rule is a bit more complex. It discusses how commas should be used to separate non-essential parts of a sentence. So, what is essential and what's non-essential is very subjective and up to the author. But most of the time you can tell when something is essential. So let's just look at this part right here. On the English section, you won't have to write anything. All you have to do is look at the sentence or the passage that they've given you. And here, the best way to figure out whether or not a part of a sentence is essential is by removing it. So when a piece of information is between 2 commas, right, if we remove it, will the sentence still make sense? Well, let's read it out loud first. My doctor, who studied at the University of Alabama, prescribed me with pills. If you removed who studied at the University of Alabama, if you just remove that part, the sentence should still make sense. So, my doctor prescribed me with pills. It still makes sense, and it means the exact same thing. So, commas are used to separate non-essential parts of a sentence. Now, if we just a couple more examples. If I said, my friend, a very proficient mathematician, is very tall. Being good at math doesn't really make you tall. I mean, there might be a stat that says it does, but objectively speaking, being good at math does not make you tall. So if you removed this part right here, and we said, my friend is very tall, it means the same thing. It's the same idea. And this extra detail was just removed. And instead of, writing it across every single time you write a sentence, you put the phrase between commas to show that it's non-essential. Now, what's a essential part? What's essential for a sentence? Well, if I were to write, the girl in the yellow dress is my friend, if the reason why I won't put commas is because in the yellow dress means something else. If I removed it, it means something else completely. Because this would be the girl is my friend. When a detail adds more, it adds something to a setting. It defines a setting. It's easier for you to kind of understand the situation. So if I write the girl in the yellow dress is my friend, here I'm establishing a setting. I'm saying a specified girl is my friend. Right, so hopefully you get the idea of that, where when it changes the setting, modifies the setting, always don't add any commas, just always leave it outside of commas. The same thing here. The man who plays basketball is standing over there. I could put commas right here. I could put commas. Probably I could, but it wouldn't mean the same thing. The man who plays basketball is standing over there. What I'm trying to say is I'm specifying who the man is. The man who plays basketball, right? The man who plays basketball is standing over there. So when I specify something, I should always leave it outside of commas. Yeah, that's commas for you.